All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome out. Um, nice to finally be live. It was YouTube is doing something funky it hasn't done before. I had to start a stream a little bit of a different way tonight, so have to look into it and find out why. I have Eric with me right now. What's going on, Eric?
Hello.
And you down with IPP? He's in the house. He ran out to grab some grub real quick, so I think he'll be back shortly. Expect him to pop in whenever he returns. How's everybody out there doing tonight? 222, Nash, Danny, Autumn, Beyond the Eye. Always a hope. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. If you guys could share this out for me, I appreciate it. I was a little bit wrapped up in doing this, didn't have a chance to tweet it out. So if anybody can share this on your social media platform of choice, I would appreciate it. Get it out there. See if we can have some people join us this evening. Eric, how
So
you
are we
been
live?
about? Huh?
Are we live?
We are live. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I've been good. How about you?
I'm good, man.
I just had my first, I don't want to necessarily say off day, but my first day to where I just didn't work nor really pay attention to any news, which
Mm-hmm.
is the first time in probably a year.
Nice,
But yeah,
nice, nice, nice. We've been talking about that lately, so it's nice to see everybody taking a little bit of time for themselves, um, doing a little something for them. What about you guys out there? Anybody doing anything this week that for Mother's Day, planting a garden, doing anything outside of your technology? Turn up voice volumes. All right, sure. Try that. Is that a little bit better, or was it Eric you were talking about?
yeah, you're loud. Or
Yeah,
maybe I might just need to turn down my hangout.
maybe trying some new stuff, audio mixer things like that. So
And if I am low, I am a low talking person apparently too. So I get told.
it is a full moon tonight. I saw that a little bit ago.
Uh-oh, you know what that means?
What, you turn into something?
No. I stay somewhat human, but still, you know what that
Somewhat
means.
human. He turns into to Eric, uh, investigative journalist in Cleveland, like Superman.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I don't know about all that either. Turn up voice a little bit for me. Okay, let's see how that works. All right, so what's been going on the past couple of days, Eric? If you didn't see anything today, I didn't really look at much news today either. So if anybody's looking for any breaking news at the moment, there's not much that I've looked at today. Um, did, however, give me an opportunity to think about some of the other stuff that's going on, um, and started looking at a few things on the nuclear side of stuff, and then it kind of led me to where I am right now.
Actually,
About
on that note, though, we did have some breaking news yesterday that I kind of forgot about for a second. Comey's gone.
Oh yeah, well that's yeah, you know, uh, rocks under a rug. No, he's that was huge yesterday, huge.
Yeah,
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, if you have any?
we we should have expected it from the beginning.
Yeah.
But what just gets me is how all of these people are now even more anti-Trump because he got rid of Comey.
Yeah.
Since when did people before care so much about an FBI director? Never. but because he's somebody that was done by Obama years ago, people are now concerned because Comey's gone.
Yep.
And I mean this in the sense of the people that were outside protesting across the country because Comey's gone. People that probably know nothing even about the FBI to begin with, but are protesting because the FBI director's gone.
Well, that's what brings them out of the woodwork. Bigger storm than Comey. Michael, do you use Hangouts at all, man? If you do, and if you're on Twitter, I'll send you a Hangout link if you'd like to join us tonight. I don't mind doing that. Um, so just let me know, and I can send you a link. So I was talking earlier about the nuclear situation and what's been going on. Everything, North Korea, of course, comes to mind when we start talking about nuclear testing and things like that. But in addition to the nuclear stuff happening on the military end, there's lots of nuclear in other places that need to be looked at as well. And Dabu put out a bunch of videos yesterday on the situation with the tunnel collapse, and and that's a pretty big deal. When we start looking at the facilities all over the U.S. and all over the world and what they're capable of and what they've done in the past, the different disasters or incidences, I guess we could call them, and uh, well, send me an email, Michael. Mike Robertson at iCitizenNews.net. Send me an email, and I'll get the email, and I'll send you an email back with a link. All right. I don't have to get it to you just on Twitter. I can get it to you another way.
Like this give you a heads up. That thing I was looking at earlier with all those videos,
Yeah.
that just started exactly 7 days ago and has 47 of the videos on there. Pretty
Really?
interesting. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's some little archive that was made by someone.
Stalker.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah. Well, got to get the info out.
Actually, we gotta get another haters gonna hate gift with an inflatable tube man. I found it once, but I don't know where it is to find it again.
The wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man.
Yep.
Haters gonna hate.
I'm sure everybody now is like, what the heck are these people talking about? Now they're just blabbering.
Well, we went from talking about nuclear disasters to wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men, so we're kind of all over the place tonight, I
That
suppose.
have nuclear radiation on their hands.
Oh, yeah, Eric's been playing video games all day today, guys, so he's he's feeling a little you know, 64-bit right now.
I'm 128. I don't know what you're talking about.
128 4K. Eric, when I say nuclear disaster, what's the first one that comes to your mind? Right away, go.
Death.
No, first the actual disaster. What's
Death.
no, but which disaster though? Like what incident? A specific incident.
Fukushima.
Fukushima's number one on your head. All right.
Yes. All the
2011.
things around them died. Everything in the zone of radiation.
Yeah, yeah, that was really bad situation. Um, we've been following Fukushima a lot over the past 6 years, and things have gotten worse and worse. And all right, Michael, I see you. Go ahead and send it. And there's been a lot of other incidences too, where and a lot of people may not have heard about them. Um, you know, Lots of different ones. So I'm gonna put a list up here. Yeah, 222. Yep, Fukushima. See, and I guess it all depends on where in time we remember. Fukushima. It's going to be the first and foremost on most of our heads. It's what we're going to think about first before anything else. And but then Chernobyl. Yep, yep. Um, and That was back in 1986. I remember 3 Mile Island. I grew up in Pennsylvania and Maryland, so 3 Mile Island is stands out for me. But there's been so many other incidences. Meltdown in '61, and my point is, this stuff. These probably, yeah, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all the way back to 45. 45 actually are the first ones on the list that I'm looking at, and they are considered disasters slash incidents. Um,
Can I say something really quick to you, Mike? Can
yeah,
you at least put the one time before you say dates? Because you're really dating yourself right now.
I'm not saying I'm from 1945.
I'm not saying that either, but by the way, how you're saying it, just say the 19 or whatever year in front of it, please. Because you're just confusing me right now.
I did say 19, didn't I? I said
No, you just
1945.
said you said just 45.
Oh, and what are you pointing out that I spent more years pre 2000 than I have post 2000?
Yes.
It's pretty messed up, Eric. I'm just kidding. It's fine. I will try to remember that. I don't want to confuse anybody. Um, yeah, John, 3 Mile Island. Yep, that's that was in March of 1979. Reactor number two in 3 Mile Island, the nuclear generating station in Dauphin County here in Pennsylvania, um, was the most significant accident in U.S. commercial nuclear power plant history. It was rated a 5 on the 7-point International Nuclear Event Scale, labeled accident with wider consequences. Um, so it got bad. You know, it's something that we need to look out for. There's, it's such a heightened uh, awareness of what could happen militarily, nuclear wise. But it's important to remember all the other things that surround us, all the testing that happened over the years, all of the and you know the weapons tests are unbelievable. I mean, the U.S. tops the list at 1,032 nuclear tests uh, since they started their testing, and Russia's at 727 nuclear tests. Um,
Yep. Just to give you a heads up, Mike, we got some breaking news out of California. There is a said to be a pretty crazy police chase going on right now in Los Angeles County.
do you have a link to it?
They just got the suspects. What's got the suspects?
Well, breaking news 1 second, old news the next.
Yeah, that was very, very quick.
Yeah. By the way, shouts out to LAPD yet once again for being the first SWAT team to, or I guess, well, I don't know about first, but at least for the LAPD, it was the first time they took out a suspect with a sniper and a helicopter the other day. So, yay, LAPD.
By the way, you will get your award, LAPD, when you. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm not even gonna say it. I was gonna say when you guys finally speak inside the hangout to show that you guys are listening, but then I'll probably be really creeped out when you do it.
You know what?
I thought you were waiting on him to say something.
No, I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this email to come in from Michael, but for some reason my email it hasn't come in yet. It's asking me to update some information on it. Just send it to Eric. Eric, have you checked your email yet today?
How did you know I have my email open?
Well, because we're talking about email.
Mike, is there something you have to tell me?
That I work for the LAPD.
Yes.
Damn it. I really don't, though. But I don't know if I'd tell you if I did.
In other news, has anybody heard of this Northern Edge 19? Oh, not 19. What the heck is wrong with me? 17-year-old? Mike, you want to play that footage really quick?
um, where is it? Do you have a link for it?
On my YouTube channel.
You want to play it, and you just screen share.
That's a lot.
Ugh. Like he said,
I
he
got it.
hasn't felt like doing any of it today, and that's fine.
I've got it. I've got it on my computer.
You
It'll take me
sure?
2 seconds.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. I'm not
I need to
prepared to go
open up a
searching
new
for it.
sheet. Add media file.
Yeah,
Are you
today's a
going to
robe.
open it
I
up?
had off today too, so today's like a walk around in your robe, and you know,
Well, I don't know about all that. That was
well,
at the
for
lake.
me, boxer shorts kind of day. All right.
I think I should really start organizing my folders.
Oh man.
All right, let me do it this way. Because this is just going to take its sweet old time.
While Eric's loading up that video, I'm going to show you guys real quick the nuclear energy facilities in just the Northeast alone. Um, there are a few close to me. Um, this is a considerable amount west of me. Um, but my point in wanting to talk about the local nuclear facilities, at least the
Can you
local.
share your screen?
I'm not sharing my screen. That's great. See, shared it with UE. There you go. All right. There we go. All right. So what do you have near you, Eric? Perry?
I'm learning as everybody else inside of this fit chill stream thingy is learning.
Shill
Yeah, I
stream?
did not know anything about. I didn't mean to say that. It's a weird thing for me.
The LAPD keeps coming up. Yeah, you have Perry Nuclear Facility near you.
I gotta look them up now.
Yeah, they're pretty close. Um, for me, the closest is this guy, uh,
Limerick.
Limerick Generating Station. Um, some interesting pictures of that place. But it's important to know radiuses during fallout and wind direction and things like that. That's the main reason I wanted to bring up the nuclear facilities that are close to wherever we live. Um, it seems like they're pretty well concentrated in certain areas. And I can't say that I honestly ever noticed that before the first time I looked at this map. But then you start looking out here out west, and
There's no population out there.
right, so there's no need for that caliber of a power station. But then we come down into California, and which is pretty densely populated throughout the western side of it, and there's only a couple in there too.
I believe they use a lot of coal out there that they get inside those mountainous areas, supposedly from the
Yeah.
northern side.
Well, it'd be nice to know. See, and then look over here, like,
Now I'm really interested in that Perry one now because I did not know anything about that.
yeah,
And like Mike was just saying earlier, you definitely make sure with stuff like this to know what directions the winds flow. Like on the northeastern part of the United States, the winds flow northeast.
FEMA emergency exercises, enforcement actions. See, the NRC.gov website is a really good place to go to. It'll give you all the breakdown information about every single nuclear facility near you. It's looking like it's actually got a lot of stuff about Fukushima on it. Links that you wouldn't expect to be here on this one page, but U.S. plant inspections following Japan event. So I guess there's a whole new set of regulations after 2011. Um,
I'm sure, yeah.
Daily status reports from each of the facilities after action. Let's see. Final after action reports are developed following emergency exercises where off-site response organizations are scheduled to participate with associated licenses. Uh, yeah, so there's all of those for every single one. Now there is, let's see, reactor event notifications. Yep, daily reports on all of them. So if there's anything that you guys want to know about them, um, I'm a little surprised to see evacuation plans are not on here though. You'd think that that would be one place to go to for that. Maybe if we let's try this.
Okay, while you're doing that, can I play this video since
Yes,
I still
sir.
have it on standby?
Absolutely. Let me share you.
Okay, so let me turn this on. I will feed in the audio so everybody can hear. So yeah, that's Northern Edge 17, in case anybody was wondering,
Yeah,
and
so
if
give us the
anybody may have
rundown
heard
about it.
stuff about it.
It was a little hard to read the it was a little hard to read the text at the bottom. It was a little bit covered up by the hangout windows in the bottom right corner, but give us the rundown on it, man. What's where's it at? What's going on with it? Why are they doing it?
Okay, so I have a whole description on it. It says 6,000 U.S. military members tested future applications of combat operations and weapons capabilities in Alaska during Northern Edge 17 from May 1st to May 13th, 2017. NE 17 is Alaska's largest and premier joint training exercise designed to practice operations, techniques, and procedures as well as enhanced interoperability among the services. Thousands of participants from all services, airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, and Coast Guard personnel from active duty, reserve, and National Guard units are involved. So yeah,
Hmm. All right. Well, when did it start, Eric?
May 1st,
And how long is it going for?
May 13th.
All right. Well, these training exercises are always interesting to watch. Let's take a look at all right. Let's screen share this with you, Eric, so you can see what I'm looking at here. All right. So aside from our nuclear facilities that are providing us our power, there's been so many tests conducted that it, there's nuclear, there's nuclear debris all over the place. There's certain areas that need to be avoided, certain areas still closed down as a result of it. I heard recently they're starting to open back up the Fukushima area to the residents. A lot of cleanup has been done over the past 6 years, and they're starting to say that it's okay for some of these people to move back in. But I find that very hard to believe. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form would that area be okay for anybody to go back into at this time or any time in the near future. And I'm curious what the real levels are over there, um, you know, because of that. But then, given that we know that, what about the testing sites, the nuclear testing facilities that have happened ever since the end of World War II, out in Nevada, places like Russia. Um, the U.S. has 1,032 nuclear tests under its belt, and Russia 727. But look at the total yield in kilotons of how much nuclear matter was put out there. The U.S. in total with over 1,000, almost 200,000 kilotons, but Russia's at almost 300,000 for the amount of debris or the amount of the size of the weaponry that they tested. Um, it's a lot. There's a lot of testing that's been done, and these areas I would also suspect are not pleasant places um, to be. People
Now,
couldn't.
what the US are, they were most likely doing it up in the Arctic regions of Russia.
Right, right, and think about it. I don't know. I know the water levels have been rising, and the Earth's temperature is changing for whatever reason, a little bit more each year. But so then all of that matter is then what, embedded in ice, could fall susceptible to melting and spreading across the world too. I mean, um, it's not a good situation. The places where these tests have been done. I would suspect you can't go to. France has 217, and those are the three countries: USA, Russia, and France, that are over the 100 mark for tests done by country. Um, France has a lot. Look at that. 96 was the last time they have a listed test. Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center. Savannah has over 126 currently. Hanford has 57. Sieverts per minute.
What up? What up?
What's up,
It's
Chico?
good.
What's up, man? Hey, everybody.
Glad you're here. Me and Eric are having a lazy night tonight. We're just kind of
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, we're just kind of like whatever, you know.
it's kind of moseying on.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
How you feeling? All fed now?
Yeah, well, yeah, for the most part. I kind of got sidetracked for a minute.
That's
My
cool.
neighbor. Yeah, it's nice to talk to people, man. You gotta step away and be social. What are we talking about? What did I
So,
walk into?
we were talking
What's up, Danny?
about the nuclear facilities throughout the U.S. And we had just gotten into the nuclear testing that's been done um, over over the years, with the U.S. being at the top of the list with 1,032 tests. Russia second with 727, and then France in third with 217. But all the other countries are under 100. Um, the amount of kilotons that have been put out there worth of explosives, and how it might be a long time before any of those places can be visited in the same way that Fukushima's all jacked up, and Chernobyl. I think they finally also recently started saying that people could start entering the Chernobyl area again, but it's been
Who's gonna feel good about that? I
yeah,
don't want to live there.
yeah, I wouldn't want to live there either.
Yeah, it's crazy. All the nuclear stuff. I mean, I think like we were saying, like I was saying, or you were saying earlier, um, nukes. Whether it's a nuclear contamination from a power plant that had a dangerous overload or something, and that's just as dangerous as a nuclear bomb or a warhead.
If not worse.
Yeah, for sure. Like this stuff is, I mean, I know I live in South Florida, and I'm always hearing about Turkey Point down in Miami, always having some kind of problems where it's showing radioactive spikes, and I don't know. They've always said that it's been leaking for years.
Yeah, yep. I um I challenge people to try and find out what's going on with their local facilities. It's not something that we're going to be able to read about online or the newspaper until it's too late. You never hear about local wildlife sanctuaries being infected, whatever.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Zombie wildlife sanctuaries. But you never hear about them getting um, radiation leaks or in those areas until it's too late. So, if there's any word of mouth on the streets around these places, it's good to share it with the right people, and see about looking into it. But if you do ever hear about anything like that, I, I don't know about you, I might try to stay away. You know,
Yeah, like I see a report here from February of this year where the Florida Keys is demanding FPL to stop using leaking Turkey Point cooling canals. and saying it's affecting the local ecosystem, and they're finding radioactive materials in the water um, close around the plant. And yeah, I mean that's the type of stuff that's not happening all across the country. So we really have to stay concerned with this stuff. I mean, there's no reason to allow this to be happening in our communities. There's so many different forms of power out there now that are, excuse me, that are suppressed. Um, depending on your state that you live in, there's different types of power they can rely on instead of nuclear facilities. Natural gas is a big thing now. There, the solar. I live in Florida, the Sunshine State. There's no reason we don't have a lot more solar here. Wind, water. The dams, hydro dams, things like that.
Yep.
Like, there's no reason we don't have all this stuff. Like, we shouldn't have to count on radioactive facilities. Like, we should really start looking at a way to start shutting these facilities down and get away from this stuff.
Well, Chico, I
It's
was
just it's too
showing
it's
this
too
earlier.
dangerous.
Take a look at this map of the U.S. here. This is the number of nuclear power reactors in the U.S. and notice how the eastern side of the United States is just significantly more dense than the western part of the U.S. Out here is where you see a lot of your hydroelectric dams and windmill power and stuff like that. Out in these open plains is good spots for it. But it'd be nice to see a lot more of that on the East Coast.
I
Man,
actually
it's like
did
that
want
big blank
to,
spot for Indiana, huh?
Hmm.
because there's nothing there. I'm looking right now. Apparently, the one here in Northeast Ohio is apparently looking to sell or even close due to other things like natural gas power plants, which I find really interesting. And they currently have, what is this, four that are under construction and eight that are about to start construction. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Mrs. Ghost. See you out there. How you doing? Tell Mr. Ghost hello.
Ghost one and Ghost two.
What
Hey,
the
two
frick?
two two.
So they're saying that the price of the nuclear power plant is valued at $900 million.
Well, they're probably factoring in their revenue. You know how much they're making just from customers yearly or monthly. I don't know. I'm
Well,
pretty
even
sure
with
that factors into that 900 million.
it is really interesting. Everybody I think should look up their nearby nuclear power plant and find out stuff about it. Like this one's operating license ends in 2027, which might be why the company's trying to get rid of all of their liability with it now.
Sure. I wonder what would come along with switching it over from a nuclear facility to some other type of facility. I mean, is that something that the city has to decide or the state has to decide? How do they go about doing that? Do you guys have any idea?
Well, I think a big thing is how do they disperse of the radioactive waste from
That's the
all of
main
these
concern.
facilities?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think to me that's the first thing that comes to mind is where do they put this stuff?
Right.
Because I mean, there's huge coolant blocks full of them at each facility, and I mean, I don't know how much they hold, but I'm pretty sure it's thousands of gallons of whatever it is that it's in there. I
Right.
don't
And
know
I do
anything
believe
about.
it's constantly flowing too. Like they have to keep cycling it out.
Yeah, it's
So,
like churning. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
so I'm not sure. I know that I think that would be the biggest factor in that is what do they do with the waste?
right.
Which is it's crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy.
I actually had a thought just when talking about that. What if they put the nuclear waste inside their nuclear devices?
Well, you gotta know that they do use uranium from power plants and stuff like that to make enriched uranium.
And
You,
dirty
you do know
bombs.
that, right? That's a huge thing. That's why
I'm speaking of the waste, not just of
yeah,
uranium, but everything else of
dirty
uranium.
bombs. You ever heard of dirty bombs?
The game, yes.
No,
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 not the
I
no.
don't
game. I
think it.
mean, dirty bombs.
I
Period.
know
It's
I'm
from
messing with
nuclear
you. I
waste
know.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of stuff that can be done with it. I mean, but we don't need to make. I'm not saying like, hey, let's dump it all and use it for warheads. Like, hell no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Um, we have too many warheads now. I'm saying like, let's figure out somewhere to put this stuff until we do. I mean, I don't know. I have no answer for it. I
Right.
don't know what to do with it.
Well,
I couldn't
radio.
figure that out if I had to, man.
Well, here's the wiki definition. Radioactivity naturally decays over time, so radioactive waste has to be isolated and confined in appropriate disposal facilities for a sufficient period until it no longer poses a threat. The time radioactive waste must be stored for depends on the type of waste and radioactive isotopes. Current approaches to managing radioactive waste have been segregation and storage for short-lived waste near surface disposal for low and some intermediate level waste, and deep burial or partitioning transmutation for the high level waste. What the heck does that mean? Let's check out what Danny just sent me here.
I'm looking into this thing right now, and this guy with this newspaper out of Cincinnati over there, this professor out of Cincinnati is talking about how we have to have nuclear power plants to continue to have more and continue to grow them so we can have clean energy and so we can create thousands of more jobs,
Right.
not factoring in any of the other environmental issues that can happen.
Now, it's not going to take much for some of this stuff to, start seeping into the areas of highly populated places if one bad situation happens. And Fukushima was a clear example of that. Now, imagine that happening, you know, somewhere here in the U.S. It's totally uh, able to happen. It would put so many people's lives at risk. It would be unbelievable, and that's why it's important to have some sort of plan, knowing the evacuation routes in your area. Um, it's important. You have to do that. You have to know that. Um, I know that for the one closest to me, Limerick Power Plant here in southeastern Pennsylvania, they on their website they have their evacuation plan, and it shows you the radius and the way that the wind direction normally blows, and if you live in certain areas where where the fallout's going to be the heaviest, and it's all based on an average of wind patterns and things like that, and so it's good to know that stuff. If you don't know that, you should definitely look it up. Um, and then, who knows what the future holds militarily for anything nuclear. I would say that it would be important to know the same type of information given any type of nuclear situation. You know, it's I think it's an important thing to know. Whether no matter what would happen in war, no matter what would happen with terrorism, dirty bombs going off in certain areas, what to do in certain um, situations. If a bomb goes off to your east and the wind is blowing from west to east, then which way do I run? You run against the wind. So knowing these things and knowing how this type of stuff disperses is key to trying to keep yourself safe in these situations. Um, all of this ties back into the survival and the prep stuff that we seem to keep getting back to the past couple of weeks, and you know maybe it's time maybe it's time to keep talking about survival stuff. But where's Otis? Yeah, Otis is trying to stay safe too.
He's like, don't forget about me.
Yeah, he can sense trouble. Otis is a vet. He knows what's up. So
If you want to tell a story,
no, I haven't introduced everybody to Otis yet. We'll have to do that on a separate stream one day. Yeah, Otis has seen a lot.
Yeah, he has some war stories, huh?
He does. He's got a good one about Chernobyl. I just wish that he wasn't so shy to get on the microphone and start talking about it. Because, all right, I'll stop talking about you. Otis.
no comment.
No comment. So, damn it, I at least got to tell him a little bit about Otis. All right, I have a dog named Otis. Otis is a boxer pit mix. He's absolutely awesome. Otis has 3 legs. He lost his leg, one of his back left leg when he was 2. He's 8 now, and the guy's got some stories. See, yeah, there's kids and dogs. You won't hear that running around the CNN press room.
Yeah.
Welcome,
life. It's
welcome to
life
our home.
Yeah.
Welcome into my living room. So yeah, Danny sent me a good article.
The sad part is absolutely none of us are in our living room, and that's the sad part.
No, I'm sitting in my bedroom actually. So
yeah, I'm in my office.
Welcome to my bedroom sounds a little more creepy than welcome to my living room.
Well, I mean, yeah. That did sound a little creepy when it came out.
That's right. Start playing a little Let's Get It On right now with creep everybody out.
Oh man, you'll see me just exit the hang out.
Bruce.
Yeah. All right, everybody. The channel's nice talking to y'all. Peace out.
See y'all later. Listen, I'm gonna paste that link one more time in the chat for what Danny just posted for me. You guys should check that out. That's from the World Nuclear Association, information on decommissioning nuclear facilities. It's been recently updated in March of 2017, and it's just a good breakdown on what goes on during the decommissioning of these facilities in pretty much real time as they're making the decisions. Like I said, it was updated March 23rd was the last time it was updated, so definitely check that out. It's pretty good information. Trying to read through it, but if I start reading the whole thing, I'll just disappear for 10 minutes. So definitely want to check that out. Chico, what do you got going on, man? How you been today?
I was actually just looking at my YouTube page, and I want to thank everybody that subscribes to me. I really appreciate everybody. I'm at 299.
Oh, he needs one more.
I'm about to hit 300. Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I really appreciate everybody. Yeah, I was just looking at that. I was actually going to my my page on YouTube to grab my link because I'm the new guy and a lot of people don't have right my link in their description.
I do. I updated it tonight, as a matter of fact. So you guys can go right in the description, go down to Independent Press Project, and the YouTube link and his Twitter handle are in there. Make sure you guys.
Oh, it's actually there. All right, man. Right on.
Man, I updated all
joking?
that junk tonight. Got it in quick.
Cool, yo.
But I'll make it convenient for.
Other than that, I just
there you go.
No, I just been chilling. I just had a regular day with my family. I missed bowling tonight, unfortunately. My daughter, she took my my old lady one of her favorite lipsticks and smeared it all over the wall and did a little artwork. She didn't get to go bowling today. Yeah,
she learned her lesson, didn't she?
Instead of bowling. Yeah.
Yep.
That's probably why you guys heard her screaming a minute ago, though. She's probably still a little mad about it.
Heard it for a nanosecond, but your
No,
trigger
but
finger on the mute button was pretty quick. I gotta
oh yeah, yeah,
I gotta
yeah.
give it
Keep
to
that.
you.
I actually wasn't ready at the. I wasn't at the ready when it first started. I had to hurry up and go for it. Yeah.
I'm
Other
actually
than
going
that,
through all of this stuff right now with this Perry power plant, and they're literally telling you all the evacuation routes if you don't have a vehicle, what to pack in a bag, and head to one of the pickup spots so you can get evacuated out of the 10-mile radius. They're literally telling you to take a sleeping bag and a bunch of other crap with you.
And that is everything that you should already have on the ready to
That
go.
essentially is telling you to have a bug out bag.
Yeah.
and I want to get further than 10 miles.
Yep.
Once that wind blow,
That's why it's
Especially
important.
with the lake here.
Yeah, you have to know
10 miles turns to 20 real quick.
Yep, if the wind's kicked up, if there's a storm going, anything like that, it changes the game instantly. So it's good to know at least what the basic map looks like, because you got to start factoring in what the current conditions are. Look, if it's a sunny day and the wind's not blowing and some type of event happens, um, it'll um, what you see them tell you to do online should be enough. They've already factored in things like, making sure you're outside of whatever radius for whatever. But if the wind's kicked up and there's a storm going on at the time that there's an event that's been, you've been alerted to, factor that in. If the if it's if it's raining sideways, then it it's completely different. So you just got to know. You got to know
That-
what direction you're facing. You got to know what direction the wind's blowing. These are all basic things that fall into
And
the
especially if you're
keeping you
thinking of
safe.
the whole radiation thing, definitely. Like even this is saying, make sure you have potassium iodide around. Pretty cheap to get it, and if you are near a power plant, you can most likely go to your health department and they will give you iodide.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I live less than 10 miles away from a power plant,
Yep.
nuclear power plant,
So do I.
huge one.
Yep.
And it's kind of crazy because one good wave, and oh boy, like everything is right on the coast, or actually, like on one of the island bars off of the coast of Florida is where it's at. Like that's crazy. Why would it be there on an island bar? Like why would it not be more inland? But I guess they need that they're using the ocean for cooling.
Yes.
And we know what happens with these cooling waters, how they when a leak starts. So where would that leak go?
To all of the what do you guys have down there? Fish?
Oh
Just
no,
said
I don't
lobsters,
know.
but
I
I don't
think we
know
have
if you guys have.
any sea creatures that are out there. I think we have a lot of them. Fish, lobsters, shrimp.
You guys have lobsters in
Crabs.
Florida?
Of course, man. Are you crazy?
I'm from the Northeast. I'm not from the South.
Yeah,
We
man.
used to the
Yeah,
Boston lobsters and all of that stuff, and
yeah. We have
those
lobsters.
places.
We don't have those. I mean, super gigantic. I've seen some pretty big ones though. I used to go snorkeling and get a couple of lobsters that weren't that far down, and I even went scuba diving a little bit in the Keys when I was really young.
All right.
Okay, I had to tune out there for a second because I have a little person in the background. She's been getting in trouble right now.
All right. I want to show this to you guys. This is from the
Wow.
local power plant by my house. I'm not going to point out specifically where I live, but let's just say this dot in the center, which is the Limerick power plant, and this 10-mile ring. I live somewhere smack dab in the middle between this dot and this 10-mile ring on the eastern side of the dot. So I am somewhere in this semicircle over here. All
What
right.
river is that?
That is the Schuylkill River that goes down to Philadelphia.
Wow, I didn't even realize it was that close to Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia is it's off. It's down here, like it's off the map. Um,
Oh yeah, I know exactly where this area is. I just didn't realize it was that close to Philadelphia.
yeah, yeah. So, but this is good information. I mean, this is information that you all want to know about your local area. You know, they have a packing checklist of things to take, the alert stations, the local, you know, AM and FM stations and television stations that you can tune into in your particular county. All of this information is available through um, through somebody in your area, whether it's from the place itself, one of the nuclear regulatory websites, or this one was actually put out by one of the local colleges. Ursinus is one of our local colleges, and this is on ursinus.edu. It was probably it was originally put out. I think the stamp on the bottom of each page um, is by Exelon in 2009, but this is the 2015-2016 PDF form. So it's got all of the websites listed here, um, public information, all kinds of stuff, and you should definitely be able to find this for your area. This is a key file to have. Um, One of the things that I know that we've been talking about lately, and I know is going to start coming up soon in our streams, is different ways that you can have information on your person if you know, if things like the power grid goes down and stuff like that. You know, if the U.S. falls, you know, we're open to any type of an electrical grid hack or something like that at any given time. So, you know, if the grid does go down, how you can still have digital um, capabilities for, you know, a certain amount of time, but you know, keeping certain files on old devices via micro SD cards and things like that, and then having a way to produce your own electricity means that you have, you know, the opportunity to have more files at your fingertips, information wise, than you could even get walking into your local public library. So it's, you know, it's important to keep these old devices and your tablets and things like that around in the event that they may be needed. Uh, Micro SD cards, you know, a couple of bucks for to be able to keep enough information on it that it'll, you know, it'll last a long time. You can learn a lot of stuff, have a lot of stuff in your pocket um, that has you at an advantage in a
Major advantage.
yeah, major advantage in a lights out type situation, or any, you know, any type of situation where things might not be what we would, I guess, call normal. You know, the lights go out, the North Korea goes nuts. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know about that one.
well, I'm not saying that they would touch us, but I'm just saying that, you know, if somebody goes nuts and it starts triggering a domino effect across, you know, across the world, it's just good to be prepared. That's all I'm saying. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? A storm could come through. We've been having these crazy waves. I don't, you know, of, if anybody's been watching the weather patterns through the U.S. the past, you know, I know at least the past 3 months they've been really crazy. But they're literally waves dipping down from up north. It looks like just wave patterns across the country, and anything could happen. You know, even just a grid getting old, a certain grid getting old, and something breaking on it could cause, you know, an entire section of the U.S. to go down for a couple of weeks, and it would suck. It would suck. A lot of people wouldn't know what to do. So I just, implore the people that are hearing my voice to keep things like that in mind. Who knows what could happen? And it's just best to be prepared. But knowing things like your local evacuation routes and stuff is key. Uh, we can watch what happens overseas all we want, but when it comes down to people's lives being at stake, it's important to know the details of your immediate surroundings for the protection of you and your family. We recently started putting together a ton of files.
You are?
Well, I said we. I said we recently started doing that. All of us, everybody here, Chico, me,
Really?
Craig's Volk.
I wasn't included in this?
Yeah, I said we. I said all of us.
Wait, I don't know anything about you guys making a book collection.
Stop, Eric.
The code breaker.
Code breaker.
That's Eric.
Yeah, we put a collection of our own personal files together, just stuff on safety, PDF files that people have written um, about how to do certain things, and here soon I'd like to figure out a way to make that available to to our friends. So we'll let you know more about that soon, but it's important to have. I have a tablet that I have separate just specifically for an on the road tablet that has a micro SD card in it that has a ton of files on it for everything that I need, from converting cars to building shelters to medical stuff to a couple of folders of entertainment things just to keep yourself busy, generate a little bit of power to keep these things going, carry some batteries on you for recharging, and you're good to go. You can pass along this information to other people that you meet, and it's a file. It's a file that can be duplicated and copied onto another micro SD card via your device that's in your hand. Um,
And even with that, you can even have a master device that you just keep stored away that you won't even touch unless you're transferring those files over to another device that you use as your main device at that time.
right. You know, um, I'm a firm believer in. Let's just take an example like an EMP attack. I'm a firm believer in that if you can keep that type of technology going after something major like an EMP attack, if you're prepared for it. If you have a box, a Faraday cage that you have a few devices in that will continue working no matter what happens. Um, yeah, that is a good idea, Danny. Maybe that's what I'll do. Um, Well, yeah, and you're right. Doesn't do any good if no power or circuitry fried, of course. But that's why I said that would be the device that I'm keeping in my Faraday cage. Um, you know, and Watchers brought up a good point about making sure those are grounded. And last night or the night before, I think maybe it was Underground World News on Friday, um, or on Monday. No, that's what it was. Day before yesterday, and. Yeah, I mean, it's something to be prepared for. I have a few batteries that are cell phone batteries, like the portable recharging ones, but um, they have built in solar panels, so that battery will constantly charge. If it's receiving enough power in the solar panel, I can actually plug it into um, my phone and keep it out in the sun, and it will just provide a continuous power charge to my phone. If I had a couple of them piggyback together, I could charge a couple of devices continuously if I wanted to, and that's something that didn't cost me a lot of money to put that together, and it also stays in my Faraday cage. And if if something happens, then I have it. The EMP comes and it goes, and um, yep, yep, absolutely insulated. And there's a lot of videos out there on how to build an appropriate Faraday cage. If you don't know what one is, it's important to find out. it's essentially putting a electrical force field around any electronic devices that you have, so that in the event of an EMP, the electricity and the pulse will go around that device and not be able to connect to it, so it doesn't fry the motherboard or any other electronic parts in that device.
I know Dabu7 has a video on his channel.
Yeah, he did it, I think, last year or the year before. I remember seeing that, and that's actually where I have a one of those like 2 foot tall by 1 foot wide aluminum trash cans, and then the aluminum tape to hold all together, insulated on the inside, so that none of the metal is exposed to the electronics, and Watcher's point the other night about stripping out one end of an electric cable and putting it onto the Faraday cage and grounding it, giving the charge somewhere else to go. It's great. There's a lot of good ways to build these things. They're really easy. You can build them with wood, make squares, line them with aluminum foil, like thick layers of aluminum foil. You can get the thick stuff. I think Reynolds Wrap makes the thicker aluminum foil, and wrap your box. But yeah, check out those videos and learn how to make that. And then take your old devices and just make sure they're charged up. Put them in the box, power them off, put chargers in there. Anything that's electronic that you don't want to get destroyed. Electronic sights for your rifles. Things like that. I mean, those are good things to
That's
keep.
a good thing to point out, man.
Yep, not
I
a
don't
lot of
know.
people think of that.
Yeah, I don't use the sight on my rifle too often, but I didn't even think about just take it off and throw it in that Faraday cage. I don't use it. I don't use that sight very often anyway, or that rifle itself. So I should just throw that sight in the Faraday cage.
Yeah,
Good thinking.
yeah, optics, man.
It's always something you forget. There's always something you forget. So
Right.
that's why it's good to talk to people, because other people are thinking other things. You're thinking something different. You'll remind them of something. They'll remind you. And yeah, that's why you gotta have you a good. Listen. If God forbid, if anything crazy, a bad situation, crap hit the fan, you're not gonna do it by yourself, man. You're gonna need some good people that you can trust, and you're gonna need friends and neighbors or whoever. You gotta have a community of people, because you don't know how to do everything. Either does anybody else. So you get you a good community of people that you trust as well, and you guys can plan things out, go over stuff, but at least if it ever comes down to it, you have somebody there who got your back. That's how I go about doing things. Is I just always try to keep in mind if my surroundings, the people around me. I try to make good with my neighbors, and I think that that's important, because your community is what will hold its own if ever something comes down, unless you're planning on leaving your house. If you're planning on leaving your house, then no biggie. But if you're planning on hunkering down, I'd say maybe reach out to a couple of your neighbors who look like they can be trustworthy.
Yeah. Yep. You absolutely have to be prepared, guys. No idea what's going to happen, and like I said, we're going to talk more coming into the spring about doing some shows about that, and focusing on certain things. Maybe we'll just show you how to make a Faraday cage. I mean, it's it needs to be talked about. Extra cell phones and batteries, 222 is in insulated coffee bags. They make
Mr. Ghost made a good point. He says that he's an electrical tech and have been for over 20 years. He says that if your weapons, I'm pretty sure he was saying this to me, but for anybody out there, if your weapons are stored in a safe, grounded safe,
sure,
then you don't have to remove your sights and lose that zero on your scope, and you could just leave them mounted right on your firearm and ground the safe. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
and I will keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
That's why that's going along those same lines. It's important to have that good community of people, who you guys could share ideas. You see, because I didn't think of that. I was thinking, let me just remove my sight and throw it in the Faraday cage, but then I lose my zero. My scope will not be shooting on point anymore. I'll have to re-zero my scope. So, like how Mr. Ghost said, I can just leave it just how it is, right on the money, and zero my safe. Zero my safe.
Wait,
Ground my
what are you
safe.
trying to do?
He's trying to throw a safe at
Ground.
somebody and make sure that his sights are on point.
I'll tell you what. If I'm throwing that safe at anybody, you better run, because I'm a strong mother person, bro. I am one strong. Hulk ain't got crap on me,
That's
man.
right. That's right, Chico.
That's
man.
a heavy safe.
Chico smash.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right.
If I'm chucking that safe at you, man, you better watch out.
That's it. That's it. Well, I can't say it enough, guys. It's always important to be prepared. Thank you, Eric and Chico, for all of the advice on things that we can do to keep ourselves prepared. Me, what up, Bray?
Hello.
Jinx. You remember that? Yeah, I remember that when I was a kid. Like when somebody say the same word at you at the same time, you gotta say jinx.
Oh,
Jinx.
double jinx.
Yeah.
Stamp that, no stamp that, quitsies, anti-quitsies.
Oh, you remember all that stuff, man.
Bubble gum in a dish.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm lost
Wow.
now.
What up?
That means that we're getting old, bro. If Eric says he's lost when we start saying stuff like that, then
Yep.
oh
Yeah.
man. Yep.
Yes, sir. How you
Yep.
doing, B?
Yeah, but he's growing up in the anti-social era, so
Wait, what are you trying to say?
you know
he
about
said it.
emojis and gifs and all that stuff, but you don't know about all that other stuff.
What other stuff? Start naming
You know,
stuff.
stuff when people actually had human contact.
Yeah. Like playing quarters.
Pogs.
Yeah.
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 Shooting spitballs at each other.
Yeah.
Throw your pencil in the roof and your friend next to you trying to make his go in the roof too.
Remember the little paper footballs? You folded them like triangles. I used to sell them for a nickel in elementary school.
Oh, you ever played sporks? We used to take the spork and make one side like a little L,
Yeah.
and
Eric,
you gotta take it and flick the other person's spork and try to whoever breaks the whole spoon portion off first.
we did it with pencils. Snap the pencils.
Yeah, man.
Eric's feels like he's in Oz right now.
What? He's like, what are these
Sporks.
people talking about?
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, since I haven't went public with it yet, but for those that voted inside of my poll, if I should let the facial grow out some or whatever, this is the results.
Oh, here we go. I can't see. You gotta lean back into your left.
Which
Yeah.
left?
Yep. Keep
The
moving.
unveiling.
The veiling of the
This is
magic.
getting pretty thick.
There you go.
It's what y'all been talking about. I missed most of it. Well, I missed it all.
Talking about locations of nuclear facilities within the U.S., energy stations. A couple of nuclear incidents over the years came up, and then we got into preparedness, knowing things like the evacuation routes for your most local nuclear facilities, and understanding direction of wind and weather and things like that. If and when something may or may not ever pop off.
Yeah. Just remember, keep lots of Vaseline in your bug out bags if you're in a nuclear zone. People are like, huh?
Huh?
Yes, petroleum jelly. You see, you wipe it all over yourself so that
I don't like where this is going, yo.
nuclear fallout can't be absorbed into the skin if you have your skin blocked.
It's
Yeah.
true. That's great advice.
So,
That's really good advice.
Keep some baking soda in your pack too.
yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, did you guys catch any of the Huckabee press conference today?
Negative. Why don't you tell us what happened?
I don't know, it was the White House press conference. They did, or press briefing. They didn't have Old Spicy wasn't there today. It was Governor Huckabee's daughter, I believe.
Interesting.
Is the deputy. Yeah, right. Yeah, drain that swamp. The deputy press secretary is Huckabee's daughter, and she touched on the Hanford situation briefly, but what I had taken from it was she said that there was no radiological no radiological whatever to worry about. But what that did tell me is that there was an atmospheric release.
Yeah, I think
So
222 posted earlier in the chat that they were actually sitting at like something like 52 sieverts per second. Is that what it is? CPS? Is that what it is? Sieverts per. Yeah, I forget what it is.
I don't know.
Real quick, Mrs. Ghost said, "Yeah, Vaseline is very useful. It's also flammable. Yeah, for sure. I do. I make cotton balls and just
Yeah, I was gonna say you can use
smear
it with
them
cotton
up
balls.
with just smear them up with the Vaseline and just seal them airtight and just throw them in my pack, so I can just use that to start a quick fire. They could get wet and everything, and they'll still start a fire, man. They're great.
Right. See, one of the biggest things with when you're dealing with any kind of radioactive nuclear fallout is letting that stuff get absorbed, because it'll collect in your thyroid. Most people know that you got to take like iodine supplements or whatever to help protect your thyroid. But the reasons why people really don't think about it, but it's your thyroid that creates hormones in your body that promote your metabolism. So, if you're eating food and you can't break it down or turn it into energy, it's you start to have a lot of different types of problems when you stop creating hormones. So, do whatever you can do to keep that stuff from getting absorbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even if you have iodine capsules, I mean, that's not an absolute protection. It just helps a little bit. You know what I'm saying? The best protection would be to not
get away from it.
Do whatever you can do to not let it enter your body. See, with the iodine capsules, that would be assuming you're going to let the radiation actually penetrate your body. You should probably try to not let that happen first.
Yeah, definitely plan an evac, an escape route. You definitely should. Everybody should. I just went and looked at my closest nuclear facility to me, and they have a emergency preparation link there that gives you information.
But where are you gonna
about
go?
how far. Well, I would go away from the furthest away from that plant as I could.
To another plant?
Well, I mean, if that's the plant that's having the problem, yeah, I would go happily toward that other plant that's not having a problem, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, at that moment, I'm concerned with the one that's having the catastrophe. I'm not concerned
I want a bubble.
Oh, of course, we'd all love a bubble.
I want a bubble.
We'd all love a bubble, man. But I mean, if we want a bubble, it looks like, I mean, from that map that Mike pulled up earlier, I mean, the perfect bubble is right there in the Midwest, man. Like, there's no nuclear facilities out there.
Colorado.
All right,
like
check
all
this
of that
out.
stuff.
Check this.
I want like Bubble Boy bubble.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh man, I don't want all that. That's a little too.
Oh yeah, I
extreme
do.
for me.
I want one. I want a Bubble Boy bubble.
I will take one of those giant. I seen this video on YouTube. It was like this giant Faraday cage these people were sleeping in for like 2 weeks or something, doing some experiment. I'll take one of those. I'll sleep in the Faraday
Why you gotta
cage.
be Iowa, Mike? What you got against Iowa?
It's got the reddest dot with the highest counts per minute. Thank you, by the way,
Are
guys.
you assuming color?
Eric's been full of awkward moments today, guys.
I felt your pain right there.
I know, man. It's like the one thing that people can't come back from.
Okay.
Data charts.
Okay,
yes. This is log in. No.
All right.
No, sir.
Well, I'm a bounce, y'all.
All right, B. Well,
all right, B. Good luck with your bubble, yo.
Just want to let everybody know Bilderberg's coming up in about 3 short weeks. If you guys come across any information, please forward it our way so we know if anybody's planning any kind of events around that Build-A-Bird meeting, or if you see anything about a relocation, send it to us if you would.
For sure.
Yeah, because Bilderberg's coming. We gotta go and spy. We want to go and see all the same people that keep going in and out of that place. Who do you think's gonna go this year?
We should get some throwaway drones that are just live
Can't do that.
streaming.
They're gonna shoot it down.
Just throw. Let's have a whole swarm of them. Send like 50 of them at one time. Just.
Well, you can go and get those Viper ones from Target for $75. that they do have cameras that'll go to like your phone or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're cheap. They're cheap enough, and what
you lose it, then it's not a biggie.
Yeah, you lose it and it's gone. As long as you record the footage that's going to your phone.
Footage. Yeah. Get you something different to see than everybody else.
But now we're talking about throwing money away. We can't even get gas, so that'd be
for sure. For sure.
All right, stop dreaming, Chico.
Fantasizing, yeah, my fault. Fantasies.
Yeah. Well, I'm the closest to.
One day, man, I have faith. One day.
I'm the closest to there. I'm thinking about going down for the Bilderberg event. I might need a little help to get there. Like B just put it. It is tough even for a gallon of gas these days. I've only said something about it a couple of times, but I put it in the description box the other day, the first time I said something about it, and I'll mention it again now. I did do a PayPal.me page, and it's in the description below if anybody's interested in helping get me there. I would appreciate it. Also, we have one with iCitizen as well. B, what's the official address on it's iCitizen News, PayPal.me.
Just iCitizen.
Just iCitizen. There you go. So.
Si, senor.
If you want to help us out, it's greatly appreciated, and I know that for a fact that would definitely help me be able to get down there. We've been looking collectively as a group at the surroundings for this event, and know pretty much.
I gotta roll. Yeah, I'll check back in.
All right, B.
All right, B.
Peace.
But yeah, we're pretty much on top of having a plan together to get down there, and it'd just be nice to have have some help to help us get down there. So I can let you know more about that soon as we make those plans. And it's I guess the moral of tonight is just be prepared as always. Have a plan, love your neighbors, and know what to do with your neighbors in the event that anything does happen. The possibilities of something happens. Who knows? That's the thing. And I truly hope nothing does. I truly hope no grids go down. No, that all of the nuclear facilities will be gone over, and everything will honestly be looked at and fixed appropriately without money or or lack thereof to keep it from polluting our environment and our people. I truly hope that we can get through this, but we keep hearing stories of leaks and contamination, and we're one earthquake or really bad storm, one rogue wave, one impossible to talk to dictator. We're one situation away from needing to be prepared. So being able to call yourself yeah, Mrs. P. Got the beard. It was actually longer. I just trimmed it up. Family's not happy, but it is what it is. But we're just one situation away from anything happen, guys. So we love you, and everybody needs to just.
We're interrupting normal programming to join the BBC News Desk for some breaking news.
Welcome to the BBC News Desk. We have breaking news of a serious incident between Russian and NATO forces near the coast of Latvia. Although the details are uncertain, early reports indicate that a Russian surveillance aircraft was fired upon by naval vessels of NATO forces operating in that region, after apparently straying into Latvian sovereign airspace. It's unclear at this stage whether the Russian aircraft was shot down or not. This incident comes in the wake of a similar event some time ago, in which 2 Russian pilots were killed after being shot down by Turkish surface-to-air missiles near the border with Syria. It's not known what caused this latest incident or at exactly what time the conflict took place, but it is believed that it happened earlier today and that Russian forces have returned fire. The government has convened a meeting of the Emergency Cobra Committee, and senior members of the British military have been seen entering 10 Downing Street. There were chaotic scenes earlier today as Prime Minister Theresa May was rushed back to Downing Street as details of the international crisis began to emerge. She had been due to attend a meeting with senior business leaders in the city today, followed by a cross-party governmental committee meeting on electoral reform, but these plans have been cancelled in light of current developments. A government spokesperson said that no statement will be issued until the situation becomes clearer. Kate Miller reports.
News of the outbreak of military action between Russia and NATO has been greeted across the globe with expressions of concern and alarm. There are unconfirmed reports that Russian forces have retaliated by engaging in direct fire against several NATO warships. 2 US cruisers, the USS Princeton and the USS Gettysburg, are reported to be in the region, but it's not known if they were directly involved in the incident. The Ministry of Defence has yet to confirm these reports, stating that the situation is changing rapidly and that they'd be making a formal statement in due course, but acknowledging that something very serious has happened. In Europe, senior military leaders have been meeting at regional NATO headquarters, indicating that a response to what they describe as unwarranted Russian aggression is being planned. A general military alert has been issued across Europe, including the deployment of over 50,000 NATO troops to key points along the central border to Russia, and the activation of over 200,000 reserve troops from France, Germany, Holland and the UK. The first contingent of British troops has already left RAF Brize Norton. All military leave has been cancelled, and the mobilisation of all British forces nationally and internationally has been ordered by the government. And we're just receiving reports that at least one NATO warship has sustained serious damage as a result of direct fire from Russian forces. Details are unclear and the number of casualties remains unknown, but it's reported that at least one vessel has been sunk with major loss of life and that contact has been lost with a further 2 ships in the area. The US President Donald Trump has condemned the Russian military action, calling on President Putin to pull back from what the US government has described as a reckless and warlike posture which can only lead to greater conflict. World leaders have expressed their condemnation of Russian military action, stating their support for US and NATO forces and their hope that a peaceful, negotiated settlement to the conflict can be achieved. The Pentagon has convened a meeting of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and a worldwide military alert has been declared for all US forces with immediate effect. We'll be bringing you further information on the US response to the situation as details emerge.
The conflict in the Baltic Sea continues to escalate, with reports that a number of Royal Navy vessels have joined the battle. It's believed that HMS Lancaster and HMS Duncan are leading the British response, and that HMS Northumberland is en route to provide additional support. The Royal Navy Trafalgar-class submarine HMS Torbay is believed to be in the region, but it is not clear whether it's involved in the conflict. The Ministry of Defence has declined to comment, stating that the military response to the situation would be proportionate, but that it would not be appropriate to discuss any details thereafter. Several destroyers from the Russian Baltic Fleet have been spotted near the coast of Finland, indicating a potential major escalation in the scale of the conflict and increasing fears that the fighting may get out of hand before a political solution can be negotiated. In response to global condemnation of Russian military action, President Putin has stated that Russia will use whatever means are necessary to defend itself, including the use of its strategic military capabilities. Russian forces are already at a heightened state of combat readiness following significant military exercises over recent months and the deployment of the Russian S-400 advanced surface-to-air missile system along the central border between Russia and Western Europe.
Reporting restrictions have been imposed due to the sensitivity of divulging troop movements, but we're hoping for an update from our local reporters in the region and from other news networks in due course. In the UK, the mobilisation of the armed forces is continuing, with a full recall of all reserve forces and heightened security at military bases and airfields. Typhoon fighter jets from 29 Squadron at RAF Coningsby in Lincolnshire and 6 Squadron at RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland have begun patrolling UK airspace, and restrictions on civilian and commercial air traffic have been imposed around military and nuclear power facilities. The Ministry of Defence has ordered the dispersal of key military forces and strategic bomber aircraft to various bases across the country, and the British submarine fleet has left the naval bases at Faslane in Scotland and from Plymouth on the south coast. Traffic restrictions have been reported on certain motorways and access points, causing tailbacks in many areas and bringing traffic to a virtual standstill on parts of the M25. Emergency services and hospitals in the UK have also been placed on high alert. A senior spokesperson for the NHS has stated that it's important the UK is prepared for any eventuality, but that this should not be a cause of undue concern.
And just to recap on the main points so far, a serious incident has been reported between Russian and NATO military forces in the Baltic Sea, apparently resulting in direct fire from Russian warships against US and British naval forces, resulting in the loss of at least one naval vessel, and with casualties now exceeding over 200 troops killed and several hundred more either injured or unaccounted for. It's not clear when the first incident took place, but it appears that sometime earlier today, a Russian surveillance aircraft was fired upon by NATO forces after apparently entering Latvian sovereign airspace. It's not known whether the Russian aircraft was shot down, and the Russian government so far has neither confirmed nor denied that this incident took place. A NATO spokesperson has reported significant troop movements in Russia near the borders of Latvia and Estonia, prompting fears that a much larger regional conflict is becoming inevitable.
A full-scale military response is underway involving combined NATO forces, although the scale and severity of the conflict remains unclear. We're expecting a statement shortly from the British government following an emergency meeting of the Cabinet in a joint session with senior military leaders. It's clear, however, that the situation is extremely serious and is continuing to escalate. Downing Street has confirmed that all parliamentary sessions have been suspended for today and that heightened security measures have been put in place around major governmental and military facilities. Reporting restrictions have also been imposed on all major news networks, reflecting what the government described as a sensitive and volatile situation which represents a substantial and immediate threat to our national security. And with the latest report from the conflict, it's believed that a Russian-guided missile destroyer has been hit by a missile fired by the British naval fleet, apparently sustaining major damage with many casualties. Heavy fires on board have been reported as NATO forces continue to retaliate. Russian search and rescue vessels are on the scene, with additional support en route from their Baltic fleet, who are expected to arrive in the region shortly.
And we do now have footage of the conflict from the region. This is the scene of Russian warships based directly off the coast of Finland. These are truly extraordinary scenes. Russian warships firing directly at US and British forces from NATO in what now must surely represent a state of war. We expect to receive a statement from Downing Street shortly about the escalating crisis and how British and international forces plan to respond to the situation. And we've just heard that the government has passed the Emergency Powers Act, bringing the country into a formal state of war preparation and suspending many peacetime activities and functions. Central government in the UK has been suspended, and power has now been passed instead to a system of local officials dispersed across the country. Emergency response and civil defence authorities have been placed on the highest level of alert, and preparations are underway in case the UK itself comes under direct attack. And let's go live to NATO regional headquarters in Brussels, where defence and foreign ministers from various NATO member countries and their allies continue to arrive. One of the early arrivals is the Belgian Minister of Defence, Steven van der Puut, joining his counterparts from a growing number of NATO member countries and their allies. And we see the arrival of representatives of the Danish government. Yes, we believe that this is Michael Zilmer-Johns, the Danish ambassador to NATO. And in the latest update on the conflict, fighter and surveillance quick reaction alert aircraft have left NATO combined air operations centres in Germany and Holland, as well as from NATO air force bases in the Baltic countries. There are reports that Russian heavy bombers have attacked the main NATO Air Force base in Lithuania, apparently resulting in heavy damage with many casualties. We understand that this is where combined forces from France, Spain and Portugal are based, mainly Typhoon and Mirage fighter jets. We're waiting to hear of any further news on this, but we understand that the attack is ongoing and that Dutch F-16s based out of Malbork in Poland, as well as British Typhoon fighter jets of the Royal Air Force based in Amari in Estonia, are responding. Clearly, something major is underway here in Europe as NATO plans its response. And we have another arrival. The security here is very heavy. There are armed officers surrounding the area. And this is the German Minister of Defence, Ursula von der Leyen, speaking with senior military commanders. We get a real sense of the seriousness of the situation. And again, not wanting to address waiting reporters. And we'll come back to NATO headquarters in Brussels. We expect the British Secretary of Defence to arrive there shortly. But for the moment, let's go back to Kate Miller to see what the latest developments are. Kate.
Thanks, John. And in a further dramatic development in the growing international crisis, Russian troops have crossed the border into Estonia and Latvia. International observers have reported a significant incursion involving an estimated 75,000 Russian troops and a number of tank divisions and missile regiments. Heavy fighting has been reported along the border areas, but Russian forces have broken through in several places and are moving quickly towards the capitals of both countries. An estimated 15,000 NATO troops are stationed in the Baltic states, making it unlikely that any significant defence of the territory can be achieved. Russian heavy armoured divisions have surrounded the strategically important cities of Narva and Voru in Estonia and Rozenka and Kraslane in Latvia in an attack led by elite Russian special forces. Russian troops and heavy armoured divisions based in Belarus and in the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad have also been massing along the border of Lithuania, with incursions of Russian fighter and surveillance aircraft already being reported in Lithuanian airspace. The national government in Vilnius has declared a state of emergency and has requested NATO support in defending its country against Russian aggression. In New York, an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council is underway, and the Russian ambassador to the United States is currently meeting with senior officials at the White House in what's being described as a frank and earnest exchange of views about the growing international crisis. In Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin has defended the actions of his military forces, stating that Russia has been provoked beyond measure by years of political and military encroachment by Western nations, and that the time had come to assert its right to defend legitimate cultural and political interests in former Soviet countries. It's not known whether the US president has had any direct contact with his Russian counterpart, or whether the so-called hotline between the White House and the Kremlin, in place since the Cuban Missile Crisis, has been used since the conflict started. The US President, the US Secretary of State, plus a number of other key political and military leaders have left Andrews Air Force Base in Air Force One and are likely to remain airborne until the crisis is stabilised. NORAD has declared DEFCON 2, bringing all American strategic nuclear forces to a high state of readiness and sending America's strategic bomber wings to their assigned fail-safe points across the globe. All remaining vessels of the US submarine fleet have sailed from their bases, joining an already substantial contingent of naval vessels in international waters.
Let's go back to NATO regional headquarters in Brussels. These were the scenes a few moments ago. The British Secretary of State for Defence, the Right Honourable Michael Fallon MP, in Brussels originally to chair a NATO committee on defence planning, but now arriving at this emergency meeting of international NATO leaders. Many of the government ministers and representatives we see today were already in Brussels for various NATO Council meetings. Others have been rushed here to join the emergency session of senior military and political leaders. And the Defence Secretary seems to be speaking with reporters. He's completely surrounded. But let's try to listen in to what's being said.
Well, this is further reassurance for our allies on the eastern flank of NATO, for the Baltic states and for Poland. And that is part of our policy of more persistent presence on the eastern side of NATO to respond to any further Russian provocation and aggression.
Large numbers of troops?
A small number of troops to start with.
We now accept that NATO is on the back foot. NATO and Britain, of course, therefore, have all been outfoxed by Russians.
Well, Russia is making a very dangerous situation. Can I start again? Russia is making a very serious situation much more dangerous. And we'll be meeting today to see what we can do to de-escalate this crisis, particularly in terms of air safety. We've seen something I didn't think would happen again in my lifetime. We've seen him trying to change international borders by force in Europe. France, the United States and ourselves have nuclear weapons. The rest of NATO enjoys the protection that gives. And by the way, a number of their air forces, of course, are committed and ready to be able to carry nuclear weapons. We're not aiming them at Russian cities. But the whole purpose of having nuclear weapons is that any of our adversaries should be left unsure as to the precise circumstances in which we would fire them.
Michael Fallon, thank you very much for joining us. I know it's a busy day for you.
And just to recap quickly on the main points so far, things have been moving very quickly from what started earlier today as a rumour that NATO forces had fired on a Russian surveillance aircraft, to a situation where Russian forces are engaging in ongoing heavy combat with combined forces from different countries in the NATO alliance. Russia has invaded Estonia and Latvia with an estimated force of 75,000 troops and a number of tank divisions and missile regiments. The international response has also been significant. Israel has warned against any moves against its territory and has declared a state of national emergency. China has advised NATO to use caution in the way it responds to the ongoing situation in Europe. A spokesman from the US State Department has confirmed that Chinese officials have also warned the US against any military activity in the South China Sea from its bases in the Philippines, stating that any such action would be interpreted as an act of aggression and would be dealt with accordingly. North Korea has declared its support for Russia and has begun mobilizing an estimated 300,000 troops along the border to South Korea, increasing concerns that the growing military crisis in Europe will spread to other international locations. The governments of South Korea and Japan have expressed their concern at the increasingly belligerent statements of the North Korean government, stating that the nuclear capabilities of North Korea remain unknown, but represent an immediate and significant threat. There are reports of massive troop movements within Russia, and there are real concerns that this conflict might escalate rapidly. Reuters news agency has reported that the much-feared Topol-M mobile missile launchers are being moved into strategic positions along the central frontier to Europe, so Russia is sending a very clear signal to NATO's Central Command. The representatives of the Polish government have just arrived. Surely they'll have serious concerns about Russian military intent, especially given their proximity to the Baltic states. Polite smiles all round, but the sense of urgency and tension is clear. And almost straight away we have another arrival. I'm not completely sure which country this delegation's from. This is live from Brussels. We can really feel the sense of urgency and tension in the air. Security is extremely tight, and very few of the representatives really want to stop and talk to the media. Clearly, this is a situation of the utmost seriousness, and no doubt a full military response is being planned.
And in breaking news, Buckingham Palace has announced that the Queen and senior members of the royal family have been evacuated to a secure location outside London. No details have been given, and it's not clear when exactly the evacuation took place, but sources indicate that the decision was based on advice from the Defence Secretary, who's currently attending an emergency session of senior NATO military leaders in Brussels. The Queen is apparently fully aware of the ongoing situation and is being kept informed of developments as they occur. Buckingham Palace has said that they will not be issuing a formal statement beyond this announcement, but that they urged people to remain calm and to monitor the situation closely. The Polish government has expressed their concern about the accumulation of Russian forces along its northeastern border with Belarus, fearing that they may push towards Germany and in doing so reclaim many regions within its country that used to be under Soviet control. Poland for many years has permitted NATO early warning and defence missile systems on its territory in a move seen as provocative by the Russian military, and these are likely to be targeted by Russia in any significant move of its army towards Western Europe. Large-scale evacuations have already been reported in Warsaw and Krakow, prompting fears that the movement of people away from major cities might interfere with the deployment of troops and military vehicles to key defence positions. All civilian and commercial air traffic in the region has been suspended, and emergency civil defence measures have been initiated by the Polish government.
We can now go to our senior military correspondent, retired Army General and ex-head of British Armed Forces, Sir Norman Fairchild, who's been closely monitoring the situation. Thank you for joining us, Sir Norman. Firstly, can you give us your assessment of the situation and where you think things might go from here?
Well, this is clearly a very serious situation, but one I have to say that might have been foreseen. It has been clear for some time that there's been a more fundamental tension between Russia and the West regarding the encroachment of NATO forces and defense systems upon the Russian border and historical territory, so this possibly has been coming for some time. The conflict in the Ukraine and in Syria has significantly increased the likelihood from the various forces would come into direct conflict at some stage, and this is certainly something that many people feared might happen.
So is this possibly something that Russia has been planning for?
Well, I think we need to bear in mind that Russian forces have been building their military strength for a number of years, investing heavily in advanced technology and having a level of war readiness that few countries could claim. We have seen several large-scale military exercises by Russian forces, which of course is a convenient way of disguising the deployment and positioning of its military assets, and they of course know that Western forces are already fully committed in various conflicts in the Middle East. I have to say that I'm not convinced that this particular episode, as serious as it is in itself, is the full picture. I believe that this is part of something much bigger, and is more likely in fact to be a diversion from Russia's true military intent, which remains to be seen.
We've seen that the government has passed the Emergency Powers Act. Most people will be unfamiliar with what this means, so can you tell us what the significance of this is in military terms?
The significance really is twofold. The first is the level of readiness it brings, preparing the country for a state of war and bringing all British armed forces to the highest possible levels of planning and preparation. This necessarily includes the British strategic nuclear deterrent. This, of course, has never happened before, so how quickly and effectively we can respond remains to be seen. But clearly, there is a real urgency now due to the severity of the crisis. The second and possibly more serious implication is that it tells us that our intelligence services have assessed the threat as being very dangerous, so they clearly know that something is up.
And we'll be returning to that conversation in a few moments. We interrupt to bring you news that the Ministry of Defence has reported what it refers to as a number of large order detonations in the seas off the coasts of Estonia and Latvia. No details or confirmation of these reports attributed to local NATO observers have been received as yet, but it's understood that one of these attacks was targeted against key supply vessels carrying fuel and ammunition to NATO forces. We believe that there is footage of the attack from a military observation vessel, and we hope to have that shortly. In further breaking news, the government has taken control of British Airways, all cross-channel ferries, and the Channel Tunnel. They say it's a temporary step to help move troops and equipment to Europe. Thousands are currently stranded at Heathrow and Gatwick, and the Royal Navy has also been deployed to guard the North Sea oil rigs. The MOD have described this as a prudent, precautionary measure. And in a controversial move, the Turkish government has refused to allow NATO forces to use their sovereign airspace, warning that any such incursion would be seen as a hostile act. Reports indicate that Turkey has refused all air traffic clearance for NATO aircraft at Incirlik Air Base, and that Turkish military forces have refused to allow access into or out of the airbase. Turkey has recently strengthened its political and military ties with Russia, but its refusal to support NATO is likely to raise concerns that this action will compromise NATO military strategy and will allow Russia to more easily advance into former Soviet countries in southern Europe.
A number of American B-52 long-range bomber aircraft have been seen leaving RAF Fairford, a primary forward staging base for United States Air Force strategic assets in the UK. It's not clear whether they're equipped with nuclear weapons, but a senior US military spokesperson has stated that a non-conventional military response may be required and that they needed to be prepared for any eventuality. American AWACS surveillance, along with several airborne refuelling aircraft, have also left Aviano Air Force Base in Italy to support military operations in the region. The Prime Minister Theresa May and senior members of Cabinet are directing emergency operations from an undisclosed location outside of London, along with the head of British Armed Forces and other senior military leaders. In the UK, military and civilian authorities are continuing their preparations to respond to the growing crisis. All non-essential and elective surgeries have been cancelled by the NHS, and hospitals are being cleared of non-critical patients to make way for potential casualties in the event of a wider conflict. The Ministry of Defence has refused to comment on rumours that Russian forces have used tactical nuclear weapons against British and US naval forces in the Baltic Sea.
The United States has continued to respond to the growing international crisis. The meeting of the US President and the Joint Chiefs of Staff is still in session, but we understand that a full mobilisation of US military forces is underway internationally and that all military leave has been cancelled. B-2 stealth bombers have been seen leaving Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri some time ago, and all military bases in Europe and the Middle East have been placed on high alert. Sources at the Pentagon are suggesting that a major strategic confrontation with Russia might be a real possibility. NATO has been moving their forces closer and closer to Russia over the past few years. And activating the Aegis missile system in both Poland and Romania very recently has caused serious consternation in Russia because of what they see as a first strike capability right on their doorstep. So they see NATO as the aggressor here. The number of NATO warships and armed forces currently positioned in the Baltic region suggest that NATO possibly knew that something might happen. These events come after a rather grand and elaborate ceremony in Moscow yesterday, in which President Putin made something of a rhetorical speech about the right of Russia to reclaim its interests in former Soviet Union countries, and to protect itself from the growing political and military influence of NATO. Nobody really paid much attention to this ceremony at the time, but it's certainly beginning to take on a new significance in light of current events. Russian state television has been broadcasting extraordinary scenes of President Putin personally directing military operations from a command center. This looks highly organized and certainly suggests that the conflict was not just a spontaneous act. Clearly a lot of planning has gone into this. Let's listen in for a few moments. This is not live, but was broadcast within the last 30 minutes.
Report in more detail on the operation. Mr. Commander-in-Chief, in accordance with your orders, we have intensified our aerial airstrikes together with intensifying the sorties. Our plan foresees engaging aviation sorties, long-range aviation from Russian-based airfields, including 25 strategic bombers and other aircraft. Mr. Commander-in-Chief, in accordance with your decision, as of today, the group of long-range bombers 222 delivered a group airstrikes on 6 targets from the Mozdok airfield. Following their landing, they prepared for a repeated sortie. The wings took flight again to deliver another group airstrike, and up to 1700 hours they delivered strikes on 6 enemy targets. As of now, the aircraft are returning to the airfield. The crews and the hardware are working normally. Mr. Commander-in-Chief, our personnel of our operations group is prepared to carry out the missions to protect the Russian Federation and its citizens.
We've just received footage of one of the attacks against NATO warships, apparently taken from a stationary camera on board a NATO observation vessel, which was sailing close to a supply convoy carrying supplies of fuel, ammunition and military equipment. If we can roll the tape, you'll see a distant view of the supply convoy, partially masked by one of the fuel tankers in the foreground, a couple of kilometres or so away from the camera. What happens then is just incredible. It seems to be a huge detonation underwater. The blast itself was about half a mile wide and must have wiped out at least a dozen vessels in one go. Let's go straight to our military expert for his view on this incredible footage. Can you tell us what type of weapon you think the Russians are using here?
I have to say that this is very disturbing. This is not a conventional torpedo by any means, and there is no doubt in my mind that Russia are using a nuclear-tipped torpedo, which generally has a yield of around 10 to 20 kilotons, and certainly would be capable of delivering the type of impact we've seen in this footage. And I have to say that this brings us into a completely different type of game. They compete against this type of weaponry by relying purely on its conventional forces. So the question is how they will choose to respond in light of these developments.
And we're receiving alarming reports that Russian special forces, backed by fast attack helicopters and paratroop regiments, have crossed the southern and northern borders into Finland, moving quickly towards Helsinki and sending NATO forces into disarray as they try to respond to this massive Russian attack. We don't have any further details at this time, but this is evidently a move towards Sweden and Norway in what must be a major push towards Western Europe. We understand that the Russian Northern Fleet, led by the Kirov-class battlecruiser Peter the Great, has taken up a strategic position in the Norwegian Sea, and we believe that they have very considerable military assets, such as fighter jets, advanced amphibious and landing craft, Akula-class submarines, and of course hundreds of cruise missiles, including those capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Having already crossed the border into Latvia and Estonia, and now into Finland, the looming question is how far Russian forces will go. Will they continue to advance and to defy NATO's declared policy of defence by all means, including the use of tactical nuclear weapons? We're now being joined by our colleagues at the BBC studios in Manchester, who'll be helping us as we bring you live news. Let's hand over for the moment to my colleague Simon Kendall. Simon.
Thanks, John. We've been watching the situation with concern and we'll be providing any updates and information possible. We're also here in case Broadcasting House in London needs to be evacuated, which we believe is a possibility. Our military expert Sir Norman Fairchild will also stay on the line with us for the time being. But for the moment, let's get the latest news from Kate Miller. Kate?
Thanks, Simon. We're just receiving reports that the Russian Air Force has bombed several military installations in Poland and that Russian tanks and heavy armoured divisions have crossed the border from Belarus into Poland just west of the city of Brest, which must surely mean that they'll push directly towards Warsaw. Russian paratroopers have surrounded the strategically important port of Gdansk and heavy fighting has been reported in the area. We've also had news that the Russian Air Force has attacked NATO missile defence systems in Romania and that Russian paratroopers have taken control of Odessa in Ukraine. Warships from the Black Sea Fleet have been spotted off the coast of Romania and reports indicate that Russian special forces have landed just north of the city of Constanta. The NATO military base at Deveselu in Romania has been hit by cruise missiles fired from the Russian guided missile frigate Admiral Grigorovich, with over 40 confirmed fatalities and heavy damage to buildings and runways. The government of neighbouring Moldova has declared a state of surrender and has pledged allegiance to the Russian state, providing a potentially important staging position and indicating Russian intent to push northwards and retake the western half of Ukraine. An estimated 20,000 Russian troops are reported to be massing on the border of Belarus, just north of the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, furthering concerns that a complete invasion of the former Soviet country is underway. The Russian government has warned against any NATO interference in its military activities in Ukraine and the Baltic region, stating that any hostile action by NATO forces would require a full retaliatory response against Western Europe and the United States. A statement from NATO Central Command is expected shortly, and we'll bring you that as soon as it comes in. So Norman, what's your assessment of the situation given this latest news?
Clearly this is a very worrying development, and there can be no doubt now that this is part of an orchestrated and premeditated strike by Russia against the West. NATO will have to respond, but we've clearly been caught napping. The West is totally unprepared for this type of scenario, so I think we're in serious trouble here.
NATO Central Command has confirmed that Russia has invaded Romania, adding that giant Antonov and Ilyushin military cargo aircraft of the Russian Air Force have dropped elite Russian special forces and heavy combat equipment and vehicles within 20 kilometres of the eastern border of Hungary and south of the Romanian border to Ukraine. There's been no official statement from the Romanian government, but it's understood that no retaliatory action is likely to be initiated by Romanian armed forces. The government of Ukraine has repeated their expression of concern and has requested direct military action by NATO against massing Russian forces. The Russian government has repeated its assertion that its action is in response to years of increasing encroachment and political interference by NATO and its allies, warning that they'll respond massively should NATO create any further escalation in the conflict. NATO has reported heavy fighting near the Latvian capital of Riga and has confirmed that Russian forces have seized control of Tallinn in Estonia. Russian forces are moving rapidly west towards Helsinki in Finland and are continuing to engage in heavy naval battles in the Gulf of Finland. In Poland, heavy fighting has been reported as Russian forces move towards Warsaw, both from the north and east. The strategically important port of Gdansk has been captured, increasing the Russian stronghold in the Baltic Sea and providing an important staging point for further military action towards Western Europe.
Thanks, Kate. We now have on the line Keith Fuller, an expert in civil defence and chief advisor to the government on emergency measures and contingent planning. Keith, we appreciate you joining us. You, more than most people, will appreciate the seriousness of this situation, and we know that there's growing concern that this conflict might escalate into a more strategic nuclear confrontation. The standard advice to the public is to gather food and water and to create a shelter in their home to protect them against blast and fallout. What's your assessment of the effectiveness of such measures?
I can tell you that I've worked in civil defence for some 25 years, and the literature that was being churned out in the 50s is practically the same as we now have this idea of upturning a table and putting it against a wall and surrounding it with cushions and painting the windows white and bringing in enough food to last for a fortnight into the room so that you can live in this room for a fortnight. I mean, good heavens, if this building is in the target area and it's shattered, broken in some way, then the fallout dust, which comes down immediately after the explosion in high levels, very heavy dust, the initial stuff that comes down, this will be very, very highly radioactive. It will not be stopped by cushions, it will not be stopped by wood, and the people that are sheltering in that makeshift shelter will certainly be dead within a few days to a few weeks from radiation sickness.
But with respect, I know that you've been critical of government policy on civil defence, but this is the general advice from government sources. Surely it has some merit in protecting people if there's a major attack. Isn't this the whole basis of the principle of protect and survive?
I would call it neglect and die in its present form, because I don't think anyone could survive in the cities in makeshift shelters. It's absolutely preposterous to expect anyone to survive under those conditions.
Thank you, Keith. We're being joined live via Skype by our Eastern European correspondent, Andreas Siebler, who's based in Warsaw. Andreas, can you update us on the situation in Poland?
We have an alarming situation here in Warsaw. People are very concerned and many are leaving the city. A short while ago we had a strange incident. The sky lit up a number of times. I could see it through our windows. The light just changed and it was very unusual. We have a few fixed cameras overlooking the city on the top of our studio building, and we can see that something did happen a few moments ago. Nobody knows what is really happening.
Andreas, we understand that the Polish government has declared a state of emergency, but have you witnessed any direct fighting or heard from anyone closer to the front line?
We are hearing sirens over Warsaw. We think that something is about to happen. We have been told to get shelter as quickly as possible. Maybe they
I'm sorry, but we seem to have lost our connection with Warsaw. We'll try and clarify the situation there and hopefully reconnect as soon as possible. But for the moment, let's go back to Kate Miller to see what the latest developments are. Kate.
Thanks, John. The leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, has complained that the government is not telling the public the whole truth about the conflict, arguing that people have the right to know what's happening and what danger they face. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has ordered emergency announcements to be broadcast and has instructed that all underground stations be immediately open to members of the public to provide shelter against a possible air attack on the capital.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. We've just had breaking news of a significant explosion at RAF Fylingdales in Yorkshire, the home of Britain's ballistic missile early warning system, in what appears to be the first direct attack against UK forces on British soil. We've also had reports of similar attacks on Thule Air Force Base in Greenland and on Clear Air Force Station in Alaska from what appears to be submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Sir Norman, this is clearly a strategic move by Russian military commanders.
Yes, all of these military bases are part of a network of early warning radar systems designed to detect a nuclear launch against the West and to help to target incoming nuclear warheads. NATO has quite a substantial anti-ballistic missile system, but it relies on accurate targeting. So without these advanced radar capabilities, we'll be more or less shooting blind. It's pretty clear that we're going to get into a real shooting match very soon.
Thank you, Sir Norman. Obviously, we'll be monitoring the situation carefully as the mobilisation of British forces continues to accelerate. We have live footage from RAF Northolt near London. These appear to be Typhoon fighter jets taking off in rapid sequence. We have unconfirmed reports that RAF fighters have been sent to intercept Russian long-range bomber and surveillance aircraft. We stress that this is not confirmed, but we will bring you as much information as possible as we receive it.
For X-ray Lima 41 and 42 for potential renegade ops vectors 05, 1326 and 1327. Scramble, 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 acknowledged.
This is quite a powerful image, the weather obviously deteriorating somewhat. Clearly heading straight to a high altitude as quickly as possible. The men and women of the Royal Air Force on their way into what must be a very uncertain future.
Take 7, US has moved to DEFCON 1. Secure the perimeter. Roger that. Over.
And we have similar scenes from NATO military bases and command facilities across Europe. Clearly, the military situation is of grave concern, but we're limited in what we can report. We've just heard that we can expect a live statement from NATO's Central Command in the next few minutes. Obviously, we'll bring you that as it happens. And we've just had news that the US ambassador and senior consulate staff are being evacuated from central London. Clearly, something has gone terribly wrong. Heavily armed US Secret Service personnel are escorting US diplomatic staff to waiting helicopters and military aircraft. We've just heard that the Pentagon and all major centres of government are being evacuated. I'm not sure if that's Green Park or St James's Park in London, or possibly Hyde Park. These scenes are just unbelievable. The sense of urgency is very clear. They're getting out as quickly as possible now. This is certainly a very frightening scene. All US military bases in Europe have been ordered to get their remaining aircraft into the air in what appears to be a frightening escalation in the conflict. And we're now going live to Brussels for a statement from NATO regional headquarters. Let's listen into this live broadcast.
The Secretary General will start and then we'll be able to take a few questions. Secretary General.
The security environment in which we meet today is dark. This nuclear saber rattling of Russia is unjustified, it's destabilizing, and it's dangerous. And this is something which we are addressing, and it's also one of the reasons why we now are increasing the readiness and the preparedness of our forces, and we are responding by making sure that NATO also in the future is an alliance which provides deterrence and protection for all allies against any threat.
And we've just had reports of a major detonation at Beale Air Force Base in California. We've had amateur footage from a number of sources in Sacramento that clearly show a huge cloud from what appears to be a massive explosion in the distance. Beale Air Force Base is part of the US ballistic missile early warning system and is a very important strategic target. We're receiving several videos and photos from news agencies indicating that something very serious has happened in California. We're expecting a statement from the Federal Emergency Management Agency at any time now.
And we've just had a statement in from NATO Central Command. Western forces have used battlefield nuclear weapons against advancing Russian troops in eastern Poland, and have also confirmed the destruction of the Russian city of Kaliningrad, which was a major military centre and submarine base. The Polish capital of Warsaw has been hit by a nuclear detonation, estimated to be in the 1 megaton range, targeted at advanced NATO positions to the east of the city, with no casualty figures as yet from its population of 1.7 million citizens. American B-2 strategic bombers have attacked Russian military bases in Belarus, and B-52 long-range bombers continue to approach Russian sovereign airspace. A NATO spokesman has said that efforts to contain the conflict are ongoing and that the American and Russian presidents are in direct contact at this time. The US president has assured the American public that everything is being done to resolve the situation peacefully and that the US government remains confident that the conflict can be contained. There are rumours that major Russian cities are being evacuated and that a national civil defence programme is underway to move citizens to underground shelters and subway systems. In Britain, the Ministry of Defence has said that it continues to monitor the situation very closely and that all efforts are being made to ensure the safety and security of the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, is said to be gravely concerned about the escalating crisis, but has asked the public to remain calm and to be confident that everything's being done to resolve the situation peacefully. The Archbishop of Canterbury and other senior religious leaders have asked people to come together in prayer at this time of great peril and to have faith that goodness will prevail over the forces of destruction.
And we've just had more breaking news that thermonuclear bombs of undetermined strength have exploded at NATO regional military headquarters in Brussels and at a major US military and radar base in Wiesbaden in Germany, resulting in the reported destruction of the city of Mainz and the outskirts of Frankfurt.
This is an emergency broadcast from the BBC. Confirmation of a nuclear attack against this country has been received. Please stand by for further information. This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast from the BBC. Confirmation of a nuclear attack against this country has been received. The threat level is extreme, meaning that a major attack is imminent. All airports and motorways have been closed for military use. Non-essential telephone lines have been disconnected. Civilians are advised to stay indoors. Please stand by for further information. This is an emergency broadcast from the BBC. The following locations have been confirmed by radar tracking as primary targets: London, Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, Glasgow, Crewe, Portsmouth, Cardiff, Newcastle, Leeds, Oxford, Sheffield, Plymouth, Edinburgh, Hull, Aberdeen, Derby, Coventry, Folkestone, Swansea, Leicester, Ipswich, Dover, Sellafield, Perth, Faslane, Cambridge, and Newport. All major airports, power stations and military bases across the country have also been identified as primary targets. Civilians are advised to seek immediate shelter in the most secure location in your home. Create an inner refuge if possible by stacking furniture, mattresses or any heavy objects to protect you from the effects of blast and fallout. Stay away from windows and external doors. Turn off all gas appliances, and extinguish any open fires or flames. Gather as much drinking water and food as possible, and store them in your inner refuge. Please stand by for further information. This is an emergency broadcast from the BBC. Confirmation of a nuclear attack against this country has been received. When nuclear impact is imminent, the attack warning red signal will be broadcast. The attack warning red signal will be sounded when nuclear impact is expected to occur within 90 seconds. When you hear the attack warning red signal, it means that your life is in danger and that you must act immediately. Seek immediate shelter in your inner refuge, or in the most secure location available to you. Do not go out of doors. Do not stay in any location where you might be exposed to the direct flash from a nuclear detonation, and do not look at the nuclear flash as this can cause permanent blindness or damage to eyesight. Right now you should focus on collecting water, food and other essentials. Store them in your inner refuge. Collect any medical supplies, clothing and bedding you might need. Bring a battery-powered radio if possible, as this may be the only way of getting information after the primary attack. Gather books, reading materials, and a torch and batteries if you can. You will need to remain in your inner refuge for at least 14 days, due to the lethal effects of radioactive fallout. Please stand by for further information. This is an emergency broadcast from the BBC. Confirmation of a nuclear attack against this country has been received. After the main nuclear attack is over, it is unlikely that any rescue or firefighting resources will be available. Radioactive fallout and damage to infrastructure and transportation links will make it difficult for your local civil defense authority to reach you within the first week of an attack. Store your food and water carefully, and use fresh produce first, leaving canned or preserved foods for later. Do not leave your shelter to seek out medical assistance,
food or drinking water, as radioactivity levels will be extremely dangerous for at least the first 7 to 10 days. If you have any fatalities as a result of the attack, you should wrap the body as tightly as possible in paper, polythene, sheets or blankets, and move the body to a nearby.
Attack warning red. Attack warning red. Seek immediate shelter. Seek immediate shelter. Attack warning red. Attack warning red.